Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new. Either way, I'm glad you're here. Today we are going to talk about canning. I've had some people ask me before I start my canning videos if I would explain the basics of canning. So that's what we're doing today. So if you know nothing about canning, if you only know a little bit about canning, stick around because I'm going to take you step by step through the things that you need to know to get started with canning. The first question you might have about canning is why? Why would I want to can my food when I can buy it at the store? Can you? Right now, I think we're all experiencing high prices at the store, but we're also experiencing some shortages. This is a way that if you're going to go to the store and buy something, you just buy a little extra and can it up. And that way you have food stocked in your pantry so that when there are shortages at town, you don't have to worry about that because you have it in your home. Also, for me anyway, the biggest reason for canning is I simply just enjoy it. I look for things to can. I enjoy canning it that much, whether it's water bath or pressure can. And to be honest, I kind of like pressure canning more than I do water bath canning. I don't know why. I think it's just because there are more things that you can can in the pressure canner than you can in the water bath. To me, they're both equally easy, and I want to make them easy for you too. And that's the purpose of these videos. And lastly, if you have a garden, this is one of the best ways to preserve what you don't eat from your harvest. Stock your pantry with that food. Then you don't even have to worry about going to the store. Canning your food also removes the oxygen and destroys the enzymes and prevents the growth of yeast, bacteria, and molds. But to keep from getting lectury, we're going to move on. Okay, let's talk about canning jars. There are lots of canning jars out there, and some of the sizes are these little jars. This one just happens to have pear butter in it. This one has apple butter in it. And those little ones like that are typically used for canning jams and jellies and butters. There's also this size. I use these when I can mushrooms. And then we get into the ones that I feel like I use the most, and that is pint size. And these are both pint size. This one is wide mouth. This one is regular mouth. The openings are different sizes. We'll talk more about that in a minute. Then there are quart size jars. That's this size. Again, wide mouth, regular mouth. And those are terms you'll hear me using when we can. And then there are these two. This is called a pint and a half. They only come, as far as I know, in a wide mouth. This is my favorite size because this is the best size for me to can things like potatoes and it be enough for Adam and I because we're just a two-family home at the moment. And then there is the half-gallon jar. This one is a wide mouth. They also come in a regular mouth. My regular mouth are probably packed away because I don't use regular mouth jars very often. They are threaded on the top. There are different brands. These are Ball. Let me say this though. When there was the canning lid and canning jar shortage of 2020, our local farm store carried a type of jar, and they had big signs that were up everywhere that said, for water bath canning only. This jar is not intended for pressure canning. So please be aware, when you buy jars, you are buying a brand that can be pressure canned, and it should tell you on the box when you buy those jars. Now, if you're getting Ball, of course, they are used for pressure canning and water bath canning and what have you. So be aware there are types of jars out there that are not intended for pressure canning. Let's talk about lids. Now, again, I use what is readily available to me at town. And again, that is ball. This is a regular mouth. This is intended to go on a regular mouth jar. This one is a wide mouth. You can see that it is bigger than the regular mouth, intended to fit on the wide mouth jar. Now, these are called rings or bands for the wide mouth, for the regular mouth. These are intended to work with your regular mouth jar, the regular mouth lid, the regular mouth ring, and you will hear ring and band used interchangeably, and they are intended for the regular mouth jar, wide mouth lid, wide mouth jar, wide mouth ring or band. Okay? Now, what are some of the other supplies that you will need for canning? You're going to need a jar lifter, because when you are water bath canning especially, and because you have to have the water going over your jars, you are going to need a jar lifter to put them in the canner. But doesn't matter which way you're canning, whether you're using water bath or pressure canning, you're most definitely going to want a jar lifter to get your jars out of your canner, because these are going to be super, super hot. So you're going to have a jar lifter. Whether it's water bath canning or whether it's pressure canning, besides your jars and lids and rings or bands, what you're going to have, besides the food that you put in them, is a funnel. Funnels are made to fit down over your jar. This part of the funnel fits down inside your jar, and it makes it so much easier to fill your jar. And there are metal and there are plastic. Now this one, you can tell, has the headspace. That's what these markings are for. We'll talk about headspace in a minute. But it has the markings for the headspace on here. I like this this funnel. It has the smaller part that goes down inside the jar, and then this wider white part fits down over the jar. It doesn't matter which one you have, and I'll be honest, I use this one more often. If you're new, you might prefer this one, just because you have your marks on here for your headspace. I've canned for years, and I pretty much know I don't even measure it anymore. I eyeball it. We'll get you there. The next thing you're going to want to have is a ladle. This will help you to fill your jars into your funnel, into your jar. Okay? So you're going to want to have a ladle. And you might want to have not just the plastic one, but you might also want to get a metal one, because if you ever do anything like lard, you'll definitely want to have a metal funnel or ladle. The next thing you're going to want to have is a debubbler. Now this debubbler has little stair steps here. You put the stair step inside your jar, so inch, 3/4 inch, 1/2 inch, 1/4 inch. But the other end is used for debubbling. Anytime you have any food in your jar, you are going to want to debubble. Now clearly, if it's juice or broth, you don't need to debubble. But any kind of vegetable or pickle or whatever, meat, you're going to want to debubble. And that's what this is for. You need something for debubbling your food. And then of course, you are going to Clean off those rims so you don't have anything that will prevent your lid from sealing. And that's where vinegar and just a little bowl to put some vinegar in and a paper towel comes in. You will put your vinegar in your bowl. You will dip your paper towel, squeeze it out a little bit, and then rub the top of your jar with your paper towel that has been soaked in vinegar. That also allows you an opportunity to go around the top of your jar and make sure that there are no nicks. That will prevent your jar from sealing, and if you don't catch that nick, it can cause your jar to explode or bust or break in the canner. So you wipe it off with your vinegar soaked paper towel, and then your lid is going to go on, and then your ring is going to go on. Now, how tight you tighten your bands depends on whether you're water bath canning or whether you're pressure canning. If you're water bath canning, you want to make sure that they're tighter. You're not going to crank them down, but you want to make sure that they're pretty snug and secure. However, if you are pressure canning, you want, the reason that we pressure can is to pull that air out of your jar. And if it's really cranked down on there, that doesn't happen. So we do what we call finger tight, just with your fingers. It's on, it's secure, but I can very easily twist this and that lid comes right back off. That is finger tight. Okay, now let's get into talking about the two different types of canners. There's a water bath canner and there's a pressure canner. Let's first talk about the water bath canner. I'm going to turn the camera down to my stove and show you my one of my water bath canners, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. This is a water bath canner. Now they come in different styles and they come in different sizes, but they all have a rack on the inside that your jars fit into. Now, before you worry about your jars, you want to be sure that your canner is filled halfway with boiling water. Then you are going to fill your jars and set them in your rack, and you will fill up your rack with however many jars it will hold, depending on the size of your canner. You never want to set jars directly into any canner, whether it's a water bath canner or a pressure canner, because there needs to be something between the bottom of your jar and the bottom of your canner, or they will bust. After you have your water brought up to a boil, at least halfway full, your jars are full, and in your basket, you are going to set your basket with the handles down into the canner. You're going to place the lid on, bring it back up to a rolling boil, and that is when you will start your processing time. That will make more sense to you as we get into canning videos, but I'm just telling you the basics of how this works before we start any recipes. Okay? Let's move on to the pressure canner. This is a pressure canner. Again, there are different types of pressure canners. There are different sizes of pressure canners. This one is an All-American 921. And the thing that I love the most about All-Americans is that they do not require a gasket that goes around the lid. It is metal on metal. I don't have to worry about buying gaskets. And I have never used a different pressure canner than an All-American. Now, the drawback to an All-American is they are pricey. This canner has a vent hole. You always want to be sure that this vent hole is clean. So every time I put my pressure canner up, I will take a pipe cleaner, and you can see that this is dirty because I use it all the time, and I stick it up through the hole where my vent pipe is, and I run it through to be sure that it is clean. Now, again, all canners come with racks that sit on the bottom of the canner that is between the bottom of your jar and the bottom of the canner. Never, ever, ever set a jar directly into a pan or a canner. Now, this one comes with two, because if I have pint jars, I can fill the bottom up with pint jars. I can set this on top of those, and I can put another layer or row of pint jars on the top. And then your lid goes on. There's a process that you go through with your canner, and we will get into that as we get into a recipe. This pressure canner also uses a weight. And on this weight, there are some numbers. There's a 5, there's a 10, might have to take my word on it, there's a 10, and there's a 15. At every number, there's a hole. And that hole that's underneath the 10 goes on my vent hole. And then we do the rest of the processing, and we'll get into that as we get into a recipe. Let's talk about canning books. There are a ton of canning books out there on the market. You can pretty much find them anywhere. But know this, they are not all reliable sources. I'm not saying don't buy them. I'm not saying don't use them. However, I am saying be sure that you know what you're doing before you use them. And if you are a beginner, and I'm assuming that you are because you're watching this video, I would suggest not buying them at all. And I have a ton. I have this one. I have, whoops, I have this one. I have the one that I just dropped on the floor. I have this one. And I'm going to grab that one that I just dropped on the floor. I have this one. This one might seem like a very good book to get because it says The Beginner's Guide to. I have not used any recipes from this book yet. I've had it for a while, but I haven't used any recipes from it. Let me put my glasses back on so I can see. Sorry about that. I have not used any of the recipes from this book. However, I know some people who have, and they are trusted canners, and they have said there are practices in this book concerning canning that are not safe. So you should know that. If you're going to buy books like that, I would suggest that you know what you're doing for a while first before you buy them. There are also names that you know and trust, like Kerr, this Kerr, and this Ball Blue Book. Now you might think, hey, those are from Kerr and Ball. Those are names that I know. Those are the canning jars that I'm using. Those are safe, right? Yes and no, because the USDA is constantly testing and updating their practices. And so these types of books become not necessarily obsolete, but they have found that there are some adjustments that need to be done in processing times and ingredients, and you just need to be sure that you have the up-to-date version for canning and processing your food. So with that said, I do use this one a lot. It is an updated Ball Blue Book, oh, for crying out loud, Ball Blue Book. Easy for you to say. I do use this one, but I do think that there is a new one even after this. If you want to be safe, and as a new canner, I suggest be safe, this is always your best bet. And even if I use those other books, I always measure the safe practices up against this book right here. It is the National Center for Home Food Preservation, USDA Complete Guide to Home Canning. This right here is what it looks like. I have the spiral bound one. I bought this. $30 is I think what it was when I bought it. However, if you don't want to invest in this, if you can't afford to invest in this, this is free online. I would suggest that if you are new, this be the only guide that you go by until you are more practiced in canning. Please, always, always, always do your research and make sure that the practice that you're using is safe. And this would be your best bet. You can get this at nchfp.com, which is the National Center for Home Food Preservation, or just the USDA Complete Guide to Home Canning. We'll get you there too, and this is your best bet. I do have another canning book that I use that I feel is very safe. However, I can't find it, and that really bothers me. It is this one, and I will link this one and the updated version of this. I will link those down below because those are your safe bets. I will not link the other books because you are new, and I don't necessarily think that those have complete safe guidelines. And the outdated books, something may have changed, and I want you to be safe, and I want your family to be safe. You never want to have to worry about botulism, okay? It's not fun from what I've heard, and let's not even find out personally for ourselves, okay? So I hope this video calms some of your fears. I hope it gave you some good information. I hope it gave you a starting point or a jumping off point to begin your process of home canning, whether it be water bath or pressure canning. I do hope that you will follow the guidelines in this book. This will even go farther into explaining everything you need to know, because I don't have time. This would be hours and hours and hours long. If I were try to tell you everything that you need to know about canning, here's a list of everything that this book will tell you. You can see all the things that you can read. However, I have given you the basics of what you need to know, and as we get into canning recipes, know that we will be following the guidelines of this book, and that I will try my best to keep you safe. However, I say again, always do research for you, your family, your area. Buy fresh food before you even start. Buy a trustworthy canner, whether it's water bath or pressure, and we will begin getting into some canning recipes, and we will begin to teach you to stock your pantry too. Thanks for watching. God bless. We are continuing to stock our pantry with canning some store-bought vegetables. This is one of the easiest things to do. They do have to be pressure canned. So if you have a pressure canner, you're not quite sure how to use it, or if you just want a different way to can vegetables that you've never thought of before, one of the easiest things to do is can store-bought vegetables. And that's what I'm doing today. I have some corn and some mixed vegetables that I'm going to be canning. And I am going to now take you over to the stove. I pretty much have everything set up, and then I will show you how to do it. Okay, let's concentrate on what's going on here right now. I have clean, empty jars, and I have my corn, and I have my mixed vegetables. These are the same bags that I used for dehydrating in our last video. They're the 2-pound bags of Great Value from Walmart. Now I have you set up on my right hand side, and I am right-handed, so there is a possibility I'm going to get in the way of the camera like that. But this is why canning this is why canning frozen vegetables from the store is so easy, especially if you're learning to can. This is a very easy way to do it. Now, these are mostly thawed. I would prefer that they be pretty much all the way thawed, because that's the closest to what they would be if you just got them from the garden. But all we are going to do is pour these vegetables into our jars. Uh-oh, I have some dogs that are getting ready to bark, I think. Now, you want to leave 1-inch headspace. Headspace is the area between your food and your lid that sits on your jar. So, when you put this lid on, there should be 1 inch of space, headspace, between the food and the bottom of this jar. Does that make sense? Okay, so I'm going to finish filling up these jars. And we might have to take a little out. We might have to add a little more. It looks like 1 2-pound bag is going to fill 4 jars. Okay? Let's open up another bag. And just continue to fill these jars. Whoops, that's way too much. I will try to stay out of the way of the camera as much as possible. I apologize if I get in the way. But all I'm doing is fill in the jars. Okay, so we have 8 jars of mixed vegetables from 2 2-pound bags. Let's check our headspace. You want to always be sure that your hands are clean. That one needs some more. Always be sure that your hands are clean, your jars are clean, all of your utensils are clean, your workspace is clean. And if you need to redistribute from jar to jar like I'm doing to make it pretty much even, that's fine. Because your hands are clean, you can touch your food. All right, now let's do our corn the same way. I love to can frozen corn. It tastes just like fresh when you're done. This one could use a little bit more. Now, remember that I said 1 2-pound bag filled up 4 of these pint jars. Anytime that you figure something like that out, that's some information that you want to add to your canning books or to any of your canning journals or whatever, if you're keeping a canning journal. That way you will know how many bags to buy of corn or mixed vegetables or whatever you're canning. So you can run a full canner of just that particular thing. Now I don't have a full bag of corn here. I forgot about that. This bag has already been busted into. Hopefully though, I can get at least 2 jars out of this. Perfect. I'm going to do a little bit of cleanup here, get rid of these bags and stuff, and then I'll come right back. So we have our vegetables in our pint jars. The next thing we're going to do, if you want to season them before you can them, we're going to add per pint a half a teaspoon of salt. And I'm using canning salt. You can use pink Himalayan if you want. I'll do this left-handed. I'll attempt to do this left-handed, so I'm not in the way. And if you continue to do everything in a sequence, move my canner out of the way again, then you won't forget where you've been, which is something that I have done before. So per pint is a half a teaspoon. If you were doing this in quarts, it would be a teaspoon. Or you don't have to season them with salt at all. Just season as you cook, if you like. All right. So now we have our food in our jars. We have seasoned with a half a teaspoon of salt per jar. Next is to fill the jars up with water. Again, to 1 inch headspace. And if you get too much water, it's fine. You can get a spoon and take it out. If you lose a little bit of your salt, that's not the end of the world. If you have water that has a lot of chemicals in it, I wouldn't use that. Before I even worry about the 1 inch headspace right now, I'm going to debubble. This is a debubbler. If you don't have one of these canning tools that comes in a canning kit, or you can buy them separately online. So we're just moving this around in our jars because you want to get all the air out that you can, as much air as possible. Now, the reason that I didn't worry about those that were overfilled or underfilled at this point is because when you debubble and it moves those vegetables around in that jar, it causes the vegetables to sink because of the absence of air, and they are no longer overfull. So you've filled your jars with your vegetables. You've seasoned if you choose to. You've added your water to within 1 inch of headspace. Now we want to be sure that these rims are clean before we put our, you want to be sure that these jars are clean before we put our lids on. I have just a little bit of white vinegar in here. Wring that out just a little bit. And because I did use salt, I'm going to run this around the rims of these jars just to be sure there's no salt. And also, as I do this, I'm paying attention to whether or not I feel any nicks in these jars, because anytime you feel a nick or you see a crack in your jar, it is no good for canning. Or anything else for that matter. I'd throw it away. Okay. So we're all good. You've filled your jars with your vegetables, you've seasoned, you've added your water, you've debubbled, you've cleaned your rims, and now you can add your lids. I am a little OCD and like that my lids and the emblem or the name on the jar match. You don't have to do that, but that is what I'm doing, just so you know. Please don't send me any hate comments or give me any hate comments because of that. And then we put our clean, washed lids on. Okay, and now we're going to tighten down our rings, and this is important, or bands. Tightening down lids, when you're pressure canning, they're supposed to be finger tight, and all that means is this is loose right now. It can't go any farther, and I just give it a little bitty tiny twist, because the air, when we pressure can, any air and any enzymes that are in here are coming up and out. We are processing these. You don't want to crank them down. That's on there tight now. You don't want to do that because then your air can't come out. And you will also ruin your lids. You'll see that they'll buckle on you, and if that happens, it's usually because they're tightened down too tight. So as far as it will go, and then a tiny twist with your fingers. Now, I am going to finish doing all of this, putting on my lids so it won't go anymore, and then just a tiny twist. Not hard by any means. Well, there we go. And sometimes you just throw those bands across the room. Okay? And I'm going to start putting these in my canner to get them out of the way. Okay, I have one row of jars down here. I have an All-American. So in the bottom of my All-American, I have somewhere between 2 and 3 inches of water. I have my jars, as many as will fit in here. I can't fit any more on the bottom because I'm using pints. There's another tray that sits on top, and then I can do a second layer of jars. Now that I have all of my jars in here, something else that I have not done in a while and need to do, the All-American doesn't take a seal. There's no seal in the lid of an All-American. It is metal on metal, and that is one of the reasons that I like it. But because of that, you need to be sure that this edge here, where it's going to meet your lid, stays lubricated, because you don't want it to stick, and that's all I'm doing. Just have some olive oil on my fingers and just running that around the rim so it doesn't stick. All right, and now we're ready to put the lid on. And you will have to follow the directions for your canner. And because my food was still just a teeny tiny bit frozen. And so it was cold. My water is also cold. It wasn't really, really cold, but it's not hot, and you don't want it to be hot. Now I'm going to turn it on high to start. And again, this will depend on your stove, but I want to bring it up to a boil. We went over this in my canning basics video. This is your vent pipe. When this starts steaming and spitting is the next thing that we are going to look for. I have my stove on high. This will come up to a boil inside, and this will start spitting and steaming. I will bring you back and show you what that looks like when we get to that point. Let me hop in here and mention something real quick. Some people will pour the extra vinegar from when they cleaned their lids into their canner. I don't do that. I think that it discolors my bands or my rings, and because I use good water in my canner anyway, I've never had a problem with cloudiness in my jars. If you do, you might want to consider doing that. Use the rest of the vinegar from cleaning your rims. Toss it in your canner. If you feel like after you're done canning your jars look a little cloudy, this will help take care of it. Can you hear that? And can you see how it's spitting? That is now venting. So once this venting starts and it's really strong and heavy like that and spitting, you time that for 10 minutes. So I'm going to set the timer on my stove for 10 minutes, and I'll come back and show you what we do after that. Okay, timer's going off, so it's been 10 minutes. Now, because I have a weighted pressure canner, which means I have, if I can get it in there, whoo, that's hot. I have a weight. You can see the 5 and the 15. I need 10 for my altitude. This 10, the hole there, goes over my vent pipe. Now I'm going to turn my stove down to about 4. I've done this enough to know just about where my stove needs to be set. And so I set mine on 4, somewhere between 3 and 4. Now, if anyone has anything to say, yes, I am canning on a flat top stove. There are people who say, do not do it. I have done it for years and years and years and years, and I'm talking 20 plus years. This is the second stove I've had, and I've never had a problem. It's never made a mark. The stoves today are different than what they used to be, and this is a brand new stove. It's about 2 years old, so I'm not concerned about it at all. So anyway, this, when it comes up to pressure, and that would be 10 pounds for my altitude, 10 pounds, which gives me a temperature of 240 degrees. This little weight is going to start jiggling, and then we will start our processing. Now I am using the USDA Guide to Home Canning, and you will see that for whole kernel corn below 1,000 feet, it processes for 55 minutes. But for mixed vegetables, you will see For a weighted gauge canner, it's 75 minutes. Anytime you are processing two different things in your canner and they process at two different times like my vegetables do, always go with the highest amount of time. So even though my corn only calls for 55 minutes, I'm going to do 75 minutes for my pints because my mixed vegetables need more time to process. It's not going to hurt the corn at all, but you need to be sure that you process it the right amount of time for everything. So when this comes up to 10 pounds of pressure, that will start jiggling, and we will start the processing time at 75 minutes. I'll bring you back then. Okay, we're jiggling, and we are right at 10 pounds of pressure. So, like I said, because our mixed vegetables are going to take longer than our corn, we are going to process for 75 minutes. So, set my timer. Oops. For 75 minutes on my stove, and I will come back and show you what we do next. See, you guys, this is not hard at all. It's very easy. There are a few steps, but they're not hard steps. So get your canners out, or go buy one if you don't have one. And let's get started canning and stocking your pantry. Okay, our timer's going off. The next thing you do is turn off your stove. That's it. What you're looking to happen, you want your gauge to come all the way back down to 0. It will take about 20 to 30 minutes. It is, there we go, 3:59. I will come back when this is back down to 0. We'll see how long it took. Okay, it's 4:40. It is back down to 0. And the only thing that you need to do right now is take that weight off. You can hear it letting that steam escape. Now, you want to be sure that you use some kind of hot pad or something, because that will be seriously hot. You can still see the steam is escaping. As soon as that's done, and it only takes a few minutes, then you're going to undo your toggles. And I do them opposite, so when I do this one over here, I do this one just opposite of it, and I do them both at the same time. Now, these still are not ready to come out of the canner. Sorry, I messed up on what I was saying here. Don't take your lid completely off of your canner just yet. Prop it up on the side for 5 minutes. Okay, it's been 5 minutes with the lid just propped up here on the side. Now, technically, you are supposed to take the weight off and wait 10 minutes before you do anything. And then after 10 minutes, you can just remove the lid. But I break it up and do 5 minutes with it just sitting here on the side. And then I do 5 minutes with the lid completely off. So when you do this, you want to be sure and remove the lid away from you. And then we're just going to set it off to the side. And now I'm going to wait another 5 minutes. You can hear them already sealing. And I'll wait another 5 minutes with them in the canner just like this. So now we are ready to take our jars out of the canner. Pick your jars straight up. You don't want to turn them sideways, because if they're not sealed, it could cause your water to come out of your jar. So always lift them straight up, even if there is water on top of the jar. You can wipe that off if you must. Lifting straight up, taking the jars out. Don't set them too close together. Now these will have water all over the top. Still just want to lift them straight up and set them over on a towel. The lids may be loose. Do not retighten your lids. Leave them alone. They are doing exactly what they need to do. So here's our jars. I have them setting on a towel. Don't set them directly on your counter, especially if you have something like granite, because they can be very cold and you don't want to put a hot jar on a cold countertop. So I actually have 2 layers of towels here. One is fine, but because they're tea towels, they're a little thin. So I have 2. These look perfect. They're already popping and sealing. And now you leave these alone for 12 to 18 hours. I will see you back then and we'll finish this up. This is the next morning. These are completely cooled. See how there's no more separation in any of the jars? So don't freak out if you have a little bit of separation here in the middle like I did. It settles down. It's just part of the process. So the last thing we do with our jars is take off the rings. And then we give these, well, first of all, I should say, check all of your seals. Make sure everything's sealed. And everything has. Then you take off your rings. And we are going to wash them in some warm, slightly soapy, just a little bit of soap. And I add some vinegar as well, because that cuts through any grease that might be on here, or oils that might be on here that have escaped from these veggies. So I'm going to get these off and we'll go over to the sink. I got this at a little boutique in Jonesboro, Arkansas, when my daughter and I went shopping last week. Oh my goodness, it smells so good. It is from the Bridgewater Candle Company. If that will focus, I do not know. So just a little bit of water, and you don't want a whole bunch of water in here. These are just pints. Adding just a splash of vinegar, like I said, to cut through any oils. That is plenty of water. Washcloth. And we just wash off our jars. They might siphon a little bit, and siphoning is something that we haven't really talked about before. That's when, as the air is being pulled up out of your jars, it'll also bring up some of your juice out of it sometimes. So again, as long as you're sealed, don't worry about it. This one looks, well, I was trying to find one that looks like it might have had some siphoning, but I am not finding any at the moment. They're all still pretty much at 1-inch level. So you're just going to wipe off the tops, wipe around the edges, and then it's okay to turn them now. They're cooled. They are sealed. So turning them sideways isn't going to hurt anything. I will give these a good rinse. Then we will dry them off and label them and find a place for them. Actually, I already have one in your pantry. You will find a place for them and put them in your pantry. So I'm just taking a clean towel. I wipe off the tops. Wipe off the rim. And then wipe off the rest of the jar. Set it to the side. And I'll get all of these done. And the only thing I do, I can way too much to be making pretty little labels. So I just write it on the top. I don't reuse my lids unless it's one that's been perfectly taken off, and I might reuse it for vacuum sealing or on a jar to make some, to store something in the fridge. It's too much of a process to try to reuse a lid only to have it fail. So I don't even go there. And you can see my OCD, the ball emblem logo and the ball logo on the jar line up. Don't make fun of me. That's not nice. All right, I'm going to get these finished up. And then we'll label. Okay, I can tell that this is mixed vegetables, and I can tell that this is corn. So I'm not writing mixed vegetables or corn on top of these jars. When I can tell what it is, the only thing I do is write the month and the year. That's all I do. And I have them all turned. I'm right-handed. I have them all turned. So all I have to do is stand here and go from one to the other. Just makes it go a little bit faster. It's worth the upfront making sure they're all turned to me than to have to stand and turn each one individually, or if you're just going to write it in the middle of the lid, you may not even care. Be sure and subscribe because I have a lot more stocking your pantry videos coming out. I'm getting ready to can some beans. In the meantime, give me a like, be sure and subscribe and ring the bell, and I will see you in the next one. Take care and God bless. Hey, you want to know what I do to beat the rising meat costs? From everything that I've seen on Google, from all of the news stories that I've heard, the news articles that I've read, prices aren't going down anyway soon. In fact, they are predicting that they're going to go up. So what do? Let me show you. You asked for it. That's right, we're canning beef chunks today. So let me put the camera down here on the top of the island and let's take a look at what I'm doing. So I went to Sam's this morning and picked up this, what even is it? It's a beef bottom round roast, and it is 4.74 pounds, so almost 5 pounds. It was $4.48 a pound, and I paid $21.24. If you can see that or not, that's what I paid, $21.24. And so what I do, I buy all of the meat I can afford right now, and I get it processed. whether that is in the freezer or in the canner. And this is going in the canner because you wanted to see some meat canning. You wanted me to show you or teach you how to do this. So that's what I'm doing. I should have cut this off first. Actually, I think it is easier to cut it off after it's in smaller pieces. I do cut off as much fat as possible, and definitely any gristle that I might come across. This is the sharpest knife I have, so it takes me some time. They do have a big sealed package of beef that's twice the size of this and twice as much. And that's usually what I buy. But I have decided, because I did this a couple of weeks ago, and I actually started recording that for you, and I don't know what happened to the footage, or I would already have this video out there for you. But I was fighting that thing, trying to cut all the fat off. There was a bunch of fat that was in the meat and gristle, and y'all, your time is money too. And so I just yeah, I'm gonna cut this off when I cut them in strips. I just decided that to save myself some time and headache, because I do not have really good knives, I'm just going to buy it this way. Much easier to cut that off after I've cut this in slices. Okay. So, I am using the recipe from the National Center for Home Canning. I think I said that right. For home food preservation is actually what it is. That's the instructions that we're using, and all it says is to put your meat in your jars. Do not add water. You can add salt if you want, and then you process it. So I am going to get this cut up, get this fat cut off the bottom, and just start putting it in my jars. Now, one thing that I do love to do when I'm canning is get everything ready. So it's all right here at my fingertips. My canner's on the stove. It's already got the 2 to 3 inches of water in it. I've got my salt here. This is canning salt that I'm using today. I have vinegar and some paper towels over here off to the side. And instead of using ball jars today, I'm using 4 jars canning lids. You want to know why? Like I was saying, I just canned some meat a couple of weeks ago, and I used my ball lids because I was going to try to work through those before I started using my 4 jars. I had 3 of them on my very expensive meat, not seal. So what happens when you have 3 jars of meat that don't seal? Well, you have to have something like beef vegetable soup or beef stew or beef tips and rice or whatever. You have to come up with something to use those 3 jars. So guess what? We were so busy last weekend, I forgot about them in the refrigerator, and they're still there. So I will not be eating them. However, they are not going to waste still. I'm going to put it in the freeze dryer, and I'm going to freeze dry it for some dog food. So win-win. The dogs will be happy. That's an awful big chunk of meat left on there. Okay, just going to put that right on down in that jar. All right, this is getting a little awkward for me to continue cutting, so I'm just going to start putting some chunks of beef in my jars. Y'all, it is so hot here. It's 99 right now, and it is almost 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and it's still 99. Now, I know my uncle lived in Scottsdale, Arizona for years, and I stayed with him when it was 116. I live in the Midwest. It's not the same type of heat. Here, when it's 105, me with asthma, I cannot breathe. And because our humidity is ridiculous. Now, I do not push or stuff the meat in the jar. I don't want to do that. But I am, as I put it in there, trying to fill up holes. See, there's quite a bit of a hole down there, and I'm just trying to fill that in, is all I'm doing. I'm just rearranging pieces is all I'm doing. So I'm just going to continue to cut this meat and put it in my jars as I cut it, and every once in a while, after I put a few chunks in there, just going to rearrange it to fill in holes. Again, not cramming it down in there. You don't want to do that. That's not safe. You need to allow, it might not get processed in the middle. Okay. I'm cutting these in about 1-inch pieces, because when this comes out of the canner, it's going to be cooked. That's why I love having this on hand. Now, some of you also asked for me to fix convenience foods. Well, I got you covered too, because I bought 2 of these. And the next thing we're going to make is beef stew. So I got 1 of these to can just the beef, and I got 1 to can you some beef stew and show you how to do that. Because I love you guys. You've been good to me, and I want to give you what you asked for when it comes to these canning videos. Okay, we are going to leave 1-inch headspace, so I'm going to start on another jar. And we're just going to keep going until all of our jars are filled. I don't know what I was thinking. That one little chunk of beef was not going to fill this canner. And I knew that. I don't know what I was thinking. I wasn't, clearly. So, I had to go get the other one that I had bought for the beef stew. And that's okay. I did forget something at town, so I'll just run back and get another chunk of beef. Okay, I am not going to force these down in these jars because, like I said, you want to fill big air pockets. There's going to be air pockets. No, I think that's too much. But basically the meat is loose. So I think we're good. I might even take another piece out of that one, because you want this meat to be able to process. Okay. I'm not debubbling, I'm just moving the meat around, making sure it's not all crammed down in there and stuck together. Okay, so I only got 6 jars out of both of those pieces of meat. Now I'm going to wash my hands. Moving on, Next thing I'm going to do is I do salt mine. You can choose to leave it just like this and salt it as you cook it, but I am going to salt mine because I think that flavor gets down in the beef, and the salt helps preserve, helps flavor. So this is a half a teaspoon. Whoops. So I'm just making it rounded. If these were pint jars, it would be a half a teaspoon. If these were quart jars, it would be a teaspoon. So I'm just doing a heaping half teaspoon. Okay. Whoa, about dropped that. I forgot to pour my vinegar in my bowl. And I have a couple of paper towels ready because this is meat. It's fatty, and I know that I touched the edges. When I was putting this meat in. Guys, we all have to be doing something. I should be turning this over. I should not be using the same spot like I did on this jar, but it's okay. There wasn't anything on there. We should all be putting food up somehow. If you don't know how to can, I highly recommend you learn, because even the federal government, trust it if you will, don't trust it if you don't, but I do believe them when they say that we haven't even seen the beginning of it yet. It's only just beginning, actually, is what I heard. Okay, like I said, I'm using my 4 jars. Got them off of Amazon. I'll link them below. You know who I do trust? The farmers. And I'm going to do another video on something that I heard. It will just be a talking video, but it's very important information about what's going on now and what will be going on later. Okay, look at this. Look at the difference in these. These jar, or these lids, are a lot thicker than the ball lids. The gasket is a ton thicker than ball lids. Okay, set those to the side. Like I said, instructions in the book say do not add water. Tight. Finger tight. Hey, that turned my lid around. That's not lined up. Has to be lined up. Can't even hardly see that emblem. Okay, let's go to the canner. Let's all go to the canner. Let's all go to the canner. Let's all go to the canner and can ourselves some beef. All right. I do not like that my canner isn't full. And if I weren't doing the video for you, I'd probably put beans in here because they process at the same time. Okay. Gonna get it turned on. Get the lid lined up. Tighten down. Alrighty. Oh, it is not on right. That's why that There we go. That's why that didn't want to fit. That side wasn't hooked. Okay, not tight, just holding the toggles up there. This is a brand new lid. I've said before this was my aunt's canner, but she had the petcock on here, and I don't know how to use that. Not that I couldn't learn, but learning how to can freaked me out enough. I know how you feel. I know where you're coming from. Okay. Ow! Lid is tightened up. What do we do next? Do you remember? If you've watched my how-to can video, we let this come up until it is venting. And then how long do we vent it? If you said 10 minutes, you're right. Okay, I'll see you back here when this is doing its thing. Hey, I wanted to hop on here real quick and say too, you asked me to do the beef chunks. You've asked me to do the convenience foods. So we're doing the beef chunks today, or you asked me to can meat. So we're doing the beef chunks today. We're doing the beef stew next, after I buy another thing of meat. And then also when I was in at Sam's today, I bought one of those great big tubes of ground beef that they have. So we're also going to be canning up some ground beef, and we'll also be making some chili. So go ahead and subscribe and click the notification bell so you don't miss those videos. And if you're liking this kind of thing, really, this is not just a call to action for you. Seriously, if you're liking these videos, don't forget to give me a thumbs up, because it really helps me and my channel, yes, because it puts my channel out there. And by putting the channel out there and these videos out there, then other people who don't know how to can are getting to see this in their recommended or their suggested. Okay, so subscribe, ring that bell so you know when the videos come out. Give me a thumbs up. Did I really just go on camera? Sorry. Okay, we're venting and spitting, so it is time to set the timer for 10 minutes. We always vent for 10 minutes. As soon as that's done, I'll be back. Time's up. All right, time to put the weight on. I'm below sea level, so I'm 10 pounds. You will have to find out what yours is supposed to be, what your sea level is. And when this starts doing, I'll come back. Because this is free online, I do not mind showing it to you. This is what we did with our chunks of meat. We did the raw pack, teaspoon of salt per quart. We did pint and a half. I did not have hot jars because I did not have hot water in my canner and my meat was cold. Anyway, fill jars with raw meat, leaving an inch headspace. Do not add liquid. You can do this if you want. I did not. Anyway, this is the book we used. The Complete Guide to Home Canning, the USDA. Anyway, I opted to order the already printed version. You can get this online, print it out yourself, take it somewhere and have it printed, like Staples or whatever. And this is, like I said, this is free online. This is free online, this is free online. I don't know why I keep saying that over and over and over, but this is free online. Recommended process time for strips, cubes, chunks of meat in a dial gauge pressure canner. Same thing. In a weighted gauge pressure canner. Well, you saw me just put the weight on there, so clearly we have a weighted gauge canner. And we have pint and a half. They're not pints, so this would not be enough time to process a pint and a half. So we have to process as if they were quarts. So we're going to process for 90 minutes, an hour and a half. We're jiggling, and I did forget to turn that down to 4. But we're only just a tad bit above 10. That will come right back down. I am going to set this timer for 90 minutes, and I will see you in an hour and a half. 90 minutes is up. So, reach around there, turn that off, and all we do is turn off the stove and leave it alone until the pressure drops from 10 pounds back down to 0. And you leave it alone, you do not touch it until that goes back down to 0. And then I'm going to wait 5 minutes after that comes down to 0 before I even touch the lid. Our 5 minutes is up. So I am going to take these toggles off. I'm gonna grab a hot pad and let the rest of that pressure release. I'm gonna just take my lid and set it cockeyed on the canner for 10 minutes. And then we'll take them out. Okay, let's get these out of the canner. Now, sometimes I wait 5 minutes, sometimes I wait 10 minutes, but it's cold in the house because it's so hot out there, outside. So that's might be kind of an extreme shock for the jars. That's why I left them in there longer. Okay. These smell so good. Now, the jars, or I'm sorry, the bands may be a little loose. Do not tighten them up. Just leave them alone. That's natural. You don't want to tighten them back up because it could give you a false seal. Don't set your jars right close together. You want to give them some room to cool off for that airflow so they can cool off. And lift them straight up out of the jar. Do not tilt them sideways to try to get any water off the top. This one was a little loose. This one's a little loose. Don't try to tighten that up, just leave it alone. Okay, we're done until in the morning. I will let these set here and cool off. It looks like they've already all sealed, so thumbs up for 4 jars. You can see that it's boiling in there. The broth that the beef made, the natural broth, because we didn't add anything, is boiling inside the jars. Also natural. It's fine that it's not filled all the way to the top with its own broth. That's fine. You followed all the directions. So we're good to go. These will set here until in the morning. We'll take these bands off, give the jars a good wash, because if there was any siphoning, these can be a little greasy. You don't want to put them up that way. So we'll give them a good wash in a soapy vinegar bath. Label what they are. I usually label the month and the year, and I'll just put beef on it. I can tell it's chunks. And put it on my pantry shelves. So easy peasy, I promise you can do this. I hope this was clear enough that you could understand. If not, if you have any more questions, be sure and leave them down below. Give me a thumbs up, subscribe, ring that bell so you'll know when all the new videos come out. Today we're going to do some ground beef to stock our pantries. You have asked for this video, so here we go. When I was at Sam's the other day, I bought this huge log of hamburger. It is 10 pounds and it was $3.98 a pound, so I paid about 40 bucks for it. It is 90-10. You can use 80-20 if you like. And what we need to get started, of course, is our pressure canner and our jars. I am using, again, my 4 jars lids, and I have my bands or my rings, whatever you want to call them. I have my little water warmer pot back here. It does boil the water, and you do need boiling water. But I'm going to bring my book in closer to you because I want to show you just a tip for new canners, or maybe even experienced canners if you have a hard time just glancing through there trying to find the instructions that you want. Let me show you something. If you have a large paragraph like this and your instructions that you need are somewhere in there, I would suggest taking a highlighter like I have here and just marking the instructions that you need. That'll make it easier to follow along. So this is the book that we're using again. And again, you get it online for free. I've highlighted the instructions that I'm going to use today. We are doing ground or chopped meat, which was what the title of these instructions was. We're using our pressure canner, so we have our pressure canner. My jars are in the pressure canner warming up. We're going to drain our meat because we want to drain that fat off. And again, I have the water pitcher back here that will boil my water when I'm ready to use it, because that's what we are going to put in our jars as per the instructions. The first thing we need to do is brown up our hamburger. I just have some of the meat added to the pan. I'm going to have to do this in shifts. Just a tip about how much to use. 1 pint jar holds about 1 pound of ground meat. I'm going to get this sauteed up and then we'll put it in the jars. Okay, I'm going to drain this. I'm going to put it in a stainless steel bowl and start packing some of my jars. Get some more going on the stove. All right, round 3 is done. It's in the sink draining. I am going to grab my jars and start filling it with our already ground meat. Ground meat. Let's get our jars. This part doesn't take long to do, so I am grabbing several. All right, gonna grab our funnel, put it on our jar, and just start loading them up with our brown hamburger. I'll worry about head space in a minute. I'm not worried about that right now. Just want to get this in here. Y'all, it is hot. I am standing in here sweating. Unfortunately, this is not going to be enough to fill my canner. We're just going to run whatever this makes. My water is boiling. Ooh, that's too much. I am recording, so you better come out with clothes on. We're going to need a lot more hamburger in these. This has been cooked already, so I am going to pack it into the jars as best I can. And I added the rest of my hamburger in here, so this is all of it. And then we're going to fill our jars up with water, boiling water. Keeping your 1-inch headspace. We're going to debubble. Make sure we have 1 inch of headspace. Make any adjustments if they're needed. This one needs a little more water. Okay, then I'm going to add a half a teaspoon of salt, and that's all the seasoning that I'm going to do on these. And this salt will mix in with the ground beef as it processes in the canner. Okay, wipe off our rims. Put on our lids. And our rings, finger tight. And that's hot. Okay, these are going to get ready to go in the canner, but first I have to get out my other jars. I'm going to do the same thing with those jars that I just did with these jars, and I'll see you when we're ready to vent. Okay, the bottom is full. I only have 3 more jars, so we're going to add our rack. Ouch. Okay. Turn it up. And now we wait until we start spitting. We're venting, ready to time. 10 minutes. And then we'll put our weight on. All right. 10 minutes is up. Turning it down. Turning it down to 4. Putting our weight on. 10 pounds of pressure. When it starts jiggling, I'll come back. But I got some fried green tomatoes going on in the cast iron skillet for our lunch today. I'll show you how to make those another time. All right, we are at 10 pounds of pressure. We're jiggling. And according to the book, we process pines for 75 minutes at our 10 pounds of pressure. So see you in 75. I just had something happen to me that I've never had happen before. My pressure dropped to about 8 pounds after I was already processing. So what you do when that happens is regulate your heat. So I turned it up a little bit. It didn't take long. It just came back up to 10 pounds of pressure, but you have to start your processing time all over again. So here we go. 75 minutes. Again. Time's up. Turn it off and let it sit till it comes back down to 0. Then we're going to wait another 10 minutes after it comes down to 0 before we do anything else. Processing is done. Taking the weight off. Taking off the toggles. Loosening the lid. Away from you, no steam bath. Set it on the side. Wait 5 more minutes, and then we'll take them out. All right, let's get these out. Straight up, don't tilt. Got the man behind the camera, so I don't know what you're seeing right now. I can't get this out of here. That's what I get for making fun of my husband, huh? Okay, hold on. And all else fails, use tongs. Okay. It looks like most of them have sealed already. Y'all, I am ready to get these done. 105 today. Having this canner going really made my kitchen hot. Okay. And there we go. Thank you, my love. Okay, let's see. Just looking at all these, that one there is not sealed. But it looks like all the rest of them are. So we'll keep our eye on that one. If it doesn't seal, we'll just put it in the fridge and then make something with it. But other than that, everything else is sealed. Everything else looks good. And I'll see you in the morning when we get these cleaned up and labeled and put them in the pantry. Hey guys, it's the next day, and it is time to get these jars cleaned up and labeled and put in the pantry. I am going to take you through the process of what I do, so I'm taking you over to the sink. When I clean up my jars, I run a sink, not full, just a couple of inches of warm water. Hard to get it regulated sometimes. Okay. Some soap and a little bit of vinegar just to help clean those up. All right. Got a squeaky floor. That's enough. You get all the rings taken off of my jars and bring them over to the sink. Because I reuse the towel to set them on to dry. I don't put my bands in here yet. I feel like it seems like I'm rushing and I don't mean to be. But I did just walk in the door. I've been gone all day over in Indiana. We bought our car in Indiana, and I know it costs more money to take it to a dealership, but they know the car, and they have the machines to hook it up to see what's wrong. And so I just take it back over there. And it didn't cost that much. It was still less than $100. I had hit a raccoon 3 weeks after we bought that car. And did some damage, $4,200 worth to be exact. I was on the interstate and it was a ginormous raccoon. So it did a little bit of damage. Well, quite a bit to be $4,200. And anyway, evidently it caused one of the clamps to the air conditioner to squeeze onto the hose and put just a little bitty hole in there. And it's been 105 degrees. I don't know what the feel like is because it's been 105. And that's no time to be with an air conditioner that's not cooling the way it should. It was cooling, but not very well. So that's fixed. And so I came home. I actually sat at the table there in the dealership and edited this video to this point. And it was crazy that just as I was finishing up the editing, the guy comes out with his explanation and total of what was wrong. So it was perfect timing. Because I was really afraid that this video might be late with the holiday and just everything going on. So, all of that's taken care of now. It didn't cost very much. Thank you, God. And I get to finish my video for you. All of them sealed. Or I'd have a sink full of Hamburger right now. But they all sealed. Okay. Now, I'm going to put my rack in here. Or my racks, both of them. And get them cleaned off. I'm a little disheveled. My hair's hanging all over the place. But you don't care about that, right? This is not a beauty channel. I didn't even dump the water out of my canner last night. I was so exhausted by the time this was done. I sat down and cooled off because I was literally dripping with sweat. It is that hot. And having the canner going made it even more hot. So, with that said, I do not know if my next video will be a canning video. Because it's just so hot. That this is heating up my house too much, which makes my air conditioner run more. I put some more soap in here and I'm running some hotter water. Just let my rings set there and soak for a bit. And I'm going to rinse my jars and my racks off. Can you see what I'm doing? Yeah, you can. These are all sealed. Did I wash that or rinse that one? These are all sealed and cooled off, so you don't have to worry about tilting them or anything now. One more. All right. I should have only used one of these. Well, I just got this out. Haven't even used it yet, so we'll just use this to wipe these off. And I will show you what this looks like in the jar. There's your hamburger, or ground beef, whatever you call it. And how about I bring it in camera? So I have something coming up in a video next week that probably next Wednesday's video I'll be using this. So look for that. I'm going to finish getting these dried off and then we'll get them labeled and put in the pantry. I have decided that from now on, when I can meat, that I will for sure be using the 4 jars instead of the ball. Or when I can anything, even my broth. So anything that has any type of fat in it, I'll be using my 4 jar lids, because I hate to say it, but I just can't rely on ball lids anymore. That, I mean, you can tell by touching those lids, there's just not as much sealant on there anymore. And they're just unreliable. I'll use them for things that are water-based, like my beans or my veggies. I'll still use them for that. And maybe some of my fruits, because I am getting ready to can peaches. But I think if I have many more failures with those lids, I'm just going to sell them and go strictly to 4 jars. Breaks my heart, you know. Ball is a pastime tradition to use ball lids or cur lids, and I don't know. The 4 jars, that sealant is really, really thick. And any new canner out there, or any experienced canner that doesn't understand why you're having a problem with your ball jars, switch to 4 jars. I'll link them below. And then when I wash these, you can't even see them. When I wash these bands, I just make sure I have quite a bit of, I just be sure my cloth is really wet, and just run my ring around them, or run my dishcloth around the ring. Okay. See what that does to my cloth when I wash those lids? Maybe you did, maybe you didn't. I couldn't tell if it focused or not. Okay. Gonna get these washed off or dried off. I'll let them sit here and drain for just a bit, and then I'll get them all dried off and put back up. I can way too much stuff to be using fancy labels. So I just write on the lids. I mean, they've got the spot there for you anyway. There, you can see it now. I am going to put on here H2O though, because I used water in these and I did not do that before. And I just put what it is, the month and the year. I'm going to finish this and then we'll go put them up. There are enough of these to fit back in a box, and that makes it so much easier to fit on the shelf. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to be short one, but that's okay. Let's go to the pantry. I'm going to use those last. Those were the ones we just did. These are the ones I need to go through. So there we go. They're clean, dried, labeled, and in the pantry and ready to go when we need them for quick meals. Give me a thumbs up. Put this video out there for other people to see that might not know how to can hamburger. Go ahead and subscribe and ring the bell. And until the next time, God bless. I have got some pantry restocking that I need to do, and one of those things that I need to restock is my pinto beans. I have one jar left, and I use those a lot because I don't just put them in things. I don't just add them to soups or whatever. I use those to make my homemade refried beans. And if you've ever had homemade refried beans before, you would never go back to store-bought because it is so stinking easy. It is more easy to make homemade refried beans with your home canned pinto beans than it is to get the refried beans out of the can that you buy from town. And at the end of this video, if you stick around, because we're having fajitas tonight for dinner, I'm going to make those homemade refried beans with that last jar of pinto beans. I can all year long. I don't can just during harvest. I can all year long. So let me get you turned around and let's get these pinto beans canned up. So I have jars that I've already started filling, but I'm going to fill the rest of these with you. Pint jars take 1/2 cup of washed beans. And you're just going to put your 1/2 cup of beans in your jar. But be sure you have washed them really well. Beans can have rocks in them. They can have little sticks in them. So you want to be, and they're dirty, they're dusty. So you want to be sure that you've got them really good and washed. And now all of my jars are filled up. So the next thing I'm going to do is just add 1 teaspoon of salt. This is canning salt. You just add that right in there on top of the beans. You can use Himalayan salt, you can use Redmond's real salt, sea salt, whatever. Just be sure that it's not iodized. All right. Oopsie. Now the only other thing you need to do is top this off with water. My jars are cold. I am doing the dry can method. This is not approved, but this is so much easier than soaking them and waiting, and then they get mushy, in my opinion. This way they don't get mushy. Now you want these to be filled up with 1 inch of head space. And because my jars are cold, My canner water is cold. It's not turned on. My water here might be a little bit warm because I have been running hot water, but that's okay. I have some floaters here. I always take those out. You don't know if you're going to have floaters until you get them in your jars. So anytime there are beans that are floating on the top of my jars, I will take them out and throw those away, because it could mean a bad bean, and we don't want bad beans. And seriously, this is all the prep that you have to do. Just making sure your jars are washed and clean. Everything is cold. The pan, the water, the beans. And we're just going to let this all come up to temperature at the same time. There are a lot of floaties in here. So I am just going to use a spoon and get these out. The only other thing I'm going to do before I cap these off is wipe off the tops. There's nothing gritty or greasy on here. So I am just going to use just damp. It's not vinegar or anything. You can use vinegar in this if it's something fatty, like my chicken broth. Yeah, I make sure that I use vinegar on my paper towel and change how it's folded. Now I'm gonna just kind of debubble these a little bit. That one needs more water. That one needs a little more water. Just make sure that your water level is 1 inch of headspace, and headspace means the amount of space between the top of your jar and the bottom of your lid. So when you put the lid on your jar, it's the space that's between what's in your jar and the bottom of your jar. That's what headspace means. That one needs quite a bit more water. Bring my pan back over and top that off. I'm doing a voiceover just for this part because what I was actually saying in this clip of the video really didn't match what I was doing at the moment. It was the middle of a story and it's old news now, so all I'm doing right here is just putting the lids on the jars before we put our rings on. Okay, now the only other thing we're going to do is put these rings on finger tight. You don't want to crank down on these. Just tighten them put them on as tight as they will go. And with my fingers, I just give it a little more turn, a little more of a turn. You have to allow for the air that's in here to be able to be processed out. And that's why you don't want to crank it down. Okay, 3, 6, 8 on the bottom. These are wide mouth. I feel like they take up a little more space. Gonna put my shelf in there. And load up the top. And I believe I miscalculated how many jars can fit in my canner. So I'm going to go get another couple of jars and get some more beans because I want to do a full canner load. I don't like to run my canner when it's only partially full. So I'm going to go grab another couple jars. Okay, canner is full. Last jar is in. You always want to be sure that your vent hole where your steam is going to come out of is clean. So I usually hold mine up to the light and make sure I can see through it. This is what I'm talking about by venting. You can see the water spitting up out of there and you can hear it. We're going to time this for 10 minutes and then we're going to put the weight on. All right, it's been 10 minutes. And now we are going to add the weight. My elevation is 10 pounds of pressure. And we wait again. As soon as this starts dancing and jiggling, then we will start a processing time. It's now dancing and jiggling and ready to start the processing time. I always turn my stove down to just below the 4 on my stove. That helps it keep it at 10 pounds of pressure. And it always stays around 10 or 11. And that's okay, that's perfectly fine. But the processing time for pints is, whoops, not that. It is 1 hour and 15 minutes for pints and 1.5 hours for quarts. But we're doing pints, so we need 75 minutes. And now we wait. Okay, we have come back down to 0. So I am going to grab this hot pad that I have sitting over here and grab my weight and let that pressure continue to release out of there, and it's done. So now I'm going to try to loosen these up. One-handed. I really like to do it opposite sides just the way I tightened, but I'm holding the camera right now. All right, I'm gonna go ahead, take these off. And I'm not going to take this lid all the way off. And I'm just going to let that set right there and kind of cool off for about 5 minutes. Well, it's been longer than 5 minutes, but I was doing laundry at the same time. I am going to take this lid off. Always lift it up away from you so you don't get slapped with that steam. Do not tip them sideways to try to get any of the water off the top. All right, I'm just going to finish taking these out. You do not want to set them super close together. You don't want them touching because you want the air to be able to get in around them. This is the pinto beans. I will be back here later to show you how to actually use these to make refried beans, homemade. All right, see you soon. I told you I would teach you how to make refried beans with our pinto beans. I have literally just enough avocado oil in the bottom of this pan to coat it. I have my heat on low. I have a jar of pinto beans. If you don't have your own jar of pinto beans, you can use pinto beans from the store. And just gonna, I don't drain. Gonna add the pinto beans. And this is what you do. That's it, y'all. Coat the bottom of your pan with oil. Add your undrained pinto beans. And mash them with a potato masher. If you don't have a potato masher, use a fork. Either way is fine. So I just stand here and smash these. And you can season these however you want, or don't season them at all. I'm not left-handed, so let me get in here a second. I'm going to turn that up a little bit so this juice can cook off, because I don't want quite this much juice. And I always add a little bit of garlic, and a little bit of cumin, but not a lot, because I have Spanish rice already made, and I have our fajitas already made, so I don't want a whole lot of seasoning in here, and just a tiny bit of salt. All of that is to taste. All seasoning for these beans is to taste. Now, if you like them thicker, go ahead and drain them. That's fine. But I prefer to let them cook a little bit and let the juice just kind of cook off. Okay. You know what? I'm going to add a little cilantro. I love cilantro. I used to hate cilantro. Now I love cilantro. Okay. That's it. These refried beans are done until they firm up a little bit. Some of this liquid kicks off. Maybe, but I want it to cook off. Okay. This is good for me. They're going to firm up as they set. So I'm just going to turn off the heat and push these to the back. And let them sit there until we're ready to eat dinner. See how nicely they thicken up when they set? That's perfect. There's our Spanish rice. And there's our fajitas. That was pretty easy, right? I did leave the camera running so you could see the process. Instead of just saying, okay, I'm gonna fill the rest of the jars up with beans and then cutting it off, I let you see a little bit of the process, and I hope you enjoyed that part. So if you did, thumbs up, go ahead and subscribe. I do have another video, and because I did chili beans as well, and my chili beans are so good, I don't even buy them at the store anymore. So stay tuned for that one. Again, like, subscribe, click the bell so you know when those videos come out, and I will see you in the next one. God bless y'all. My last video, we did some just plain pinto beans, And today I am going to make a canner load of chili beans. So I'm bringing you along again to show you what I do. I've already got the beans in the jars, but I have to add all the spices. So I'm going to get the camera turned around and bring you down here and show you what I'm doing. Okay, just like with the plain pinto beans, everything is cold. Even my canner is cold. The beans are already in the jars. I just need to add my spices. And the first one I'm going to add is chili powder, because these are chili beans. And usually what I do, well, not usually, what I do is I just pick a spice and I just go through and add it to every jar before I move on to my next spice. And keep it simple, because I get too distracted too easily, and this keeps me on track. So we're just going to add half a teaspoon of chili powder to all of these jars. A little more, a little less, it's not going to hurt anything. Don't stress over being exact on these spices. However, you should know that anytime you add spices when you're canning, they get very, very strong in your canning jar. So I'm just going to wipe this off on my towel and move on to my cumin. Let me take my little scoop out here. I love cumin. It is one of my favorite spices. And I think people are with cumin, well, you either like it or you don't. And I'm definitely a like it. So I'm going to get all the cumin in these jars. Don't want to forget where I left off. If I add it twice, well, it's just going to be very cumin-y. Three more. Okay, set the cumin aside. And the next thing we're going to add is garlic. I use granulated garlic. I'm just going to take the lid off, wipe my spoon off again. Not that I really care if there's cumin in the garlic. All right, half a teaspoon. All right, that's it for the garlic. And a half a teaspoon of onion powder. Could you make the spice up and mix all the spices together and then add them to the jars? Absolutely. However, I do not, because I want to be sure that the amount of spice that's supposed to go in the jar is going in the jar. So I don't mix them up before I put them in the jars. Just a tiny bit stuck together in there. All right, half a teaspoon of onion powder. Now, it also calls for a half a teaspoon of minced onion. I'm not a fan, really, of minced onion in foods, but so I don't necessarily add the full teaspoon. Yeah, whatever. You can choose to leave this out and add one or the other. I'm just adding a little bit. And whatever spices you don't like, leave them out. Like I said, if you don't like cumin, don't add cumin. If you don't like minced onions, don't add minced onions. I wouldn't suggest leaving the chili powder out because these are chili beans, just saying. Okay, and the last two are salt, and you only want 1/4 of a teaspoon of salt. And again, I'm going to be a little conservative on this as well, because onion powder can give off a salty flavor, and so can garlic powder. So I would say I'm pretty much doing a scant 1/4 teaspoon, which just means that it's not quite all the way full. Okay, that's all the salt. Last, smoked paprika, one of my favorite spices. Smoked paprika and cumin. Oh my goodness. I'm not skimping on the paprika. All right. This actually goes right there. So let me move these out of the way. And the last thing we are going to add is 1/4 cup of tomato sauce. And I have my home canned tomato sauce. And this is just going to go in each jar. I probably don't even need that funnel. Not going to skimp on the tomato sauce either, because it's just going to make it taste that much better if there's a little bit extra in there, in my opinion. Okay. All right, there we go. Now these are all filled with our spices and our tomato sauce. So the last thing we want to do is top them off with some water. From here on, it's the same as it was for just the regular pinto beans. We are going to fill these to 1-inch headspace. Now, we are going to debubble. Don't worry if any of your spices are a little caked up maybe, because they will break apart in the processing. Okay, some of these need to be topped off. And that happens when you debubble some stuff sometimes. There'll be air in there, and when that air is released when you're debubbling, then it creates more room and you have to top it off. All right, let me move this. Okay, I'm going to start here in the front and just wipe off these rims. And get these in the canner as I go. This is why you periodically have to turn your paper towel. I'm going to have to go grab some more lids before I can finish this. Let's get the lid on. Gonna let it come up and start steaming and vent for 10 minutes, and I'll be back. 10 minutes is up. It has vented for 10 minutes. It is time to put the weight on. Again, for my elevation, 10 pounds of pressure. Hard to do while looking through the phone camera. There we go. When this starts jiggling, we'll time it. These are pints, so it's 75 minutes. I will see you back when this starts jiggling. Okay, we are at 10 pounds of pressure. We're starting to jiggle. I am going to hop off of here, set my timer on my phone for 75 minutes, and I will see you back in a bit. Okay, processing time is over. Do you remember what to do? Only thing you do right now is turn the heat off. And we let it set until the gauge comes back down to 0 pressure. That usually takes about 30 minutes. See you then. We are back down to 0. So I'm going to take that weight off. And then I will let my lid just kind of sit ajar for at least 5 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes, and then I will take the jars out. I'm just taking these out of the canner and setting them over here on my towel. this is the chili beans. I appreciate you being here with me. And until the next time, God bless y'all.